Automation's intent at its root is just simply to help us be better, help us get more things done in the same amount of time that we have to do those very things. And so as we implement automation correctly, it can do that for us.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a good one. Our guest is the president and CEO of eFileCabinet, which is a document management software company. Jesse Wood, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be on here, Michael.
It's great to have you. And I am excited to hear what you're working on over there at eFileCabinet and how you're helping bookkeepers be more automated and get back to the reason why they started their business and really enjoying their business a lot more. So I'm excited about this episode. And before we get into all of that, Jesse, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path leading up until now.
You bet. So I'm a Canadian from Alberta, Canada, a transplant into the United States. So our headquarters here is in Salt Lake City, Utah. And my background, you say my career path until now, I actually started educationally in school. I was going into dentistry, and for many reasons that I won't explain here, that just was not a fit for me. I didn't want to go into that medical profession. And so I switched gears and went into business. And right while I was in college, I got a hankering for starting businesses. And so I started, believe it or not, an automation business. This is almost 25 years ago now. And so when I started that automation business, it was literally smart home technology and automation things. And so I come from that background and that world. And when I did that, we made some crazy things happen in some crazy houses. That market didn't really take off until maybe 10 years passed my time as that. I'd moved on since then into some technology departments and staying really in the automation industry. So I worked for an automated lighting control company called Light Touch. And it's a very high-end commercial and residential lighting control system. And from there, I handled all of their engineering teams. And so I moved very quickly from business into the technology side. I always had a very strong interest in that. And so over time, I was running their R&D and their engineering departments and just kind of stayed in that field forever. I, again, started my own business maybe 12 years ago, worked in that for about 5 years until they sold that. And that business was serving, believe it or not, the medical community. I went back to dentists and orthodontists and some of those specialty practices and servicing their organizations, helping in the automation side of things. So bridging everything from their audiovisual equipment and even their x-ray equipment, putting that in automated forms to make their businesses more efficient. Fast forward into my later years, I come to eFileCabinet. I've been here about 5 years. And I came as the CTO, so the Chief Technology Officer, and just a couple of years ago, took on the role of CEO to help our business grow. And our focus here has been all about automation and technology. And so I guess you could say, really, I've been in the automation and technology industry for 25 years in a variety of different fields, servicing different businesses and different applications. But I think that just goes back to my engineering mindset. I just really love business process. I love making things more efficient. I love making things better. I love to create things. And so my background has kind of been centered in those areas.
Wow. Well, you have, I mean, clearly you have some experience in automation, and that's exciting. But you also have a lot of experience both working in business, owning your own businesses, starting businesses. So quite a wide range of experiences that have brought you to where you are today.
Absolutely.
Tell me why why our listeners should be thinking about automation?
Great question. So automation at its root is simply designed to make our lives easier, better, and I love using the word, you'll hear me use it all the time, it's more efficient. And automation isn't always perceived that way, but that's why we should love automation. Automation's intent at its root is just simply to help us be better, help us get more things done in the same amount of time that we have to do those very things. And so as we implement automation correctly, it can do that for us. But there are times often when automation doesn't accomplish that for us.
It is often coming up in the bookkeeping and accounting profession industry around automation. And I've heard that before where it's people will say that, this is automated, but yet many people get frustrated that they try to automate something and perhaps it creates a lot more work or it's not quite a fully baked solution. And you experienced maybe that when you were doing the home automation, is that things were you were way ahead of your time in that market space.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just speak a little bit to how your question around it should do these things, but it doesn't. I think really the reason why it doesn't is most people who are creating something that gives an automation solution to someone else, they have often a limited perspective of what every single aspect of what someone's trying to accomplish could be. And so I guess I could summarize that by simply saying one size doesn't often fit all, right? In fact, hardly ever does one size fit all. And when people are trying to implement automation into their businesses, their hope is exactly what I explained. It's going to make things better. It's going to make things more efficient. What's unknown is what do I have to do with this system? How do I have to configure it? I'll use that word. How do I have to configure it in order to get that return on my investment? And that proves to be difficult for two reasons. One, because the tool itself wasn't designed possibly to do everything that we could think of. And number two, the people who are expert in helping us with that often, they don't have the expertise that we have or an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish entirely. So their result and what they provide isn't exactly what we wanted it to do. And then you run into that, well, this doesn't fit in this situation. And now I'm having to do extra things in order to get this work to happen. And so here's my business process. It does A, B, C, and I wind up with a tool that only does A and C. Now I'm manually having to do B, and it just becomes complicated. And so for years, this has been going on for literally decades, but automation's been tried by so many different organizations. And if you truly can't repeat what their business process is that they're trying to have accomplished, then you're going to wind up causing additional work to be done. And that's why I think today, automation is sometimes a bad word for business because they say, I've tried 3 or 4 times to do something automated and it simply doesn't work. It winds up spending and wasting a lot of time and money in my business. And so what do people do? Unfortunately, Michael, when that happens, they go back to status quo. They go back to doing the same thing instead of continuing to pursue an automated environment. I think those businesses who continue to pursue automation, they are finding those successes and finding that return on the investment. And sometimes it is a pretty hefty investment, but when you make that investment, I think you can find those real results as long as you're willing to stick with it. And as long as, like I said, you have a partner who's willing to help understand what you do and get that implemented properly in your business.
I agree completely. It speaks to persistence and being passionate about having that automation end up working. We're living in a time where it's not if, it's a matter of when. It's just
yes.
Whoever stays in long enough to figure things out will benefit. And if you're not doing it, you're certainly not moving in the right direction. So everybody, I would believe that our listener today, if they're serious about the future of their business and being in this industry, this is a key word, automation. They need to embrace it. And it's exciting because it will bring efficiencies and it will bring the opportunity to do the work that really matters for the customers that they work with, these small business owners. So let's talk a little bit about what is eFileCabinet and how is it helping bookkeepers automate their business?
Yeah, so eFileCabinet is a document management solution company. And when I say that, that means lots of different things to people. I think most people understand it as a document repository. And we're much more than that. I would explain it in these ways. A repository can't file your files for you, but that is what eFileCabinet drives to do. And we tell that to people often when they ask, well, what is it that you can do to help my business? We say, well, let's start with documents. Would it help if we could have those documents file themselves? And most people are taken back. Your system can do that? Yes. We can file those files for you. We use intelligent organization and automation technology to read the types of documents that you're storing. And it really doesn't matter what you're storing, Michael. A lot of people ask questions. Does it matter what bookkeeping system I'm using or what software I use? No is the answer to that. Any application, its output, whatever it is, invoices, receipts, checks, it doesn't matter. Whatever the output is of that system, we can learn that at eFileCabinet and then tell it programmatically what you want to have happen. And what the result of that is, let's say you're doing a new journal entry for something that doesn't exist inside of your document management system, meaning a folder structure that doesn't exist for maybe a client that isn't inputted yet. We can read it, pull off the client's information, create the structure that you want created in your environment, name that file, and associate key points of that metadata with that file when it saves and stores so that you can easily retrieve it based on any information you think is relevant to finding that document. And so we do that without you having to do anything. What we require for that is simply to understand your business process. And once we learn that and help you implement that, we can literally make things file themselves. You spend so much time as a bookkeeper in inputting information, journaling, trying to keep track of that organization. We believe it should be a lot easier to put in and to manage and to retrieve and find and even share. That should all be automatic. If you do something that's repeatable, we want you to be able to make a process for that and use eFileCabinet to help make you more efficient. And again, Michael, you said this earlier, but the only reason why is so that you can get back to what made you successful as a business owner in the first place. We want you to be able to do the things that matter, not those things that take you time.
Wow. It sounds very exciting and it sounds very interesting. I'm sure many of our listeners are thinking about, well, how can I get it started? How can I look at it? When someone's looking at technology, there's like hundreds of applications like yours that promise efficiencies. And so time is limited to go and evaluate these things. If someone was considering document management in this essentially electronic filing, automated filing of documents, what does it look like for someone to evaluate your program?
Super simple. They would just go to eFileCabinet.com. From there, you can learn much about what it is that we're doing to service different industries with our technology. You can simply click right there to chat with someone about questions that you might have and how that applies to your business, or even just right there, click to get a live demo from a member of our staff. And demonstrations can take as little time as 5 minutes. Most time we'll probably take with you is 15, even if that's a pretty in-depth demonstration, just to show you what eFileCabinet can do for your business. But Michael, you asked a great question. If I'm trying to learn about that, I'm a tech nerd, so if I nerd out here for a minute, I'm sorry. But use your capability on the web to find and compare some of these products. Great sites like Capterra. You can go there and see reviews from lots of our customers, lots of other customers from other software packages to really give a comparison of what you're trying to do. I know we've got lots of bookkeepers with us today. You can even research and look for that, the document management solutions that are helping bookkeepers be more efficient in their management. And you'll find us along with others there, and some great review sites will give you a detailed, in-depth comparison to those products as well.
Thank you. I mean, Capterra, it's a great suggestion because that is what many are doing. They have to evaluate, and that can help save some time in the evaluation. And you're a technologist and a former CTO of this organization, so you're very familiar with evaluating different softwares and solutions. How have you learned over your years being an evaluator of a potential solution for your business? What are some of the tips and tricks you've figured out along the way?
Well, I will tell you the biggest tips that I could give is listen to your customers. I've developed product for now over 25 years. And I will tell you, as much as we think we know and we learn from people using our software, pales in comparison to actually having real conversations with our customers and listening to some of the things that they're trying to solve. And I would just say that's certainly the thing that I've learned the most from. And I can tell you from feedback, this is what's amazing to me. We may come up with some of the most brilliant ideas on what to do for a product that we think is just amazing and revolutionary. But at the end of the day, it's the simple things that people do more efficiently that make the biggest difference to them. And maybe just an example, we work with a customer that I'm thinking of who does tax application, tax preparation, and an accountant. Many of our bookkeepers, some of them I know dabble in that accounting space as well. But this particular individual was storing new documents for new clients every year. And they brought on, if you can believe this, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 new clients a year. And it was taking their staff, it was days often to get the folder structure and everything put into the document management system the way that they wanted it, and then storing all of their files. Well, we simply helped automate that. And we took what they used as their engagement letter that they send out to all of their new customers. And we used the information from the engagement letter, which was enough to create the document structure and folder structure, and created all of those new accounts for them. So the next time they have a new customer, all they do is send the engagement letter through eFileCabinet, and it creates all of their document folder structure and stores appropriate document files, and even shares out automatically some information with that client through our secure sharing portal. All of that happens automatically because we just listen to their process. And they love now knowing that whenever they bring on anybody new, everything is stored according to the way that they want it stored, and they have the right information that's submitted to those customers automatically. They don't have to remember whether they sent that to the clients or not. It really streamlined a part of their business. And you can imagine what they did from there, now taking other business processes and making it more efficient. So I just love that. I love when we can solve someone's real challenge and their problem using automation and technology. And we can do that for any business as long as we understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish. We work with them and we help them to make their business more efficient.
That's exciting. What a great analogy or story of this situation. I'm sure many of our listeners are thinking, that sounds intriguing. Definitely worth going and looking deeper into that. And like you said, a demo with one of your team members to be able to have a look at that sounds like a good option. Now, you mentioned security, a secure site. Tell us a little bit about online security, as I know it's a hot button, has been for years, probably will continue to be so. But tell us a little bit about how you deal with that, some of your thoughts around online security.
You bet. So first of all, security, I don't have to tell any listener, it's extremely important today. You have to take good care of your information, but more even importantly than that, your client's information. That must be protected at all times. In fact, not that I'll go dive too deep into compliance, but you're not even being compliant if you're exchanging personal information, whether that's in the health organizations or industries, whether that's just personal identification information. You cannot disclose that or have that breached in any way without being outside of compliance in many industries. And so you've got to have a solution that has things encrypted and protected at all times. And so obviously, if you're looking for systems, you need to make sure that they are doing that. But security helps businesses in different ways. And that might sound funny to say that, but I think security in many applications has become a hindrance to our efficiency. And when I say that, it's because so many people worry about security and keeping their things so protected, it now becomes difficult to gain access to and to share that information. And so, I don't think I have to tell any of your listeners, it's not good to send an email that has something that has confidential or personal information in it. You shouldn't send an email, even if you're sure that it goes to that person and you know their email address. It needs to happen in a secure environment. And so either using secure mail or using a portal, like I mentioned earlier, and when I mentioned security, using a sharing portal, that protects your data and it keeps it secure in both the transmission of that as well as when it's resting in the place for the person to access that information. And so you need to do that to keep it secure. But the harder I work at making something really secure, the harder it is to access. And maybe I could use an example of passwords. I know we're in a day and age where it's hard to remember what passwords we use for what accounts. If you're like me, you have to use a password manager to be able to keep it all straight. Well, if I set a password complexity rule in my software, that means I have to have 25 characters, let's say, or 26 characters, and it's alphanumeric and it has to contain special characters. Remembering that is really difficult. So now, when I go to a remote location, it requires my password. If I can't remember that or have an easy way to retrieve that, it makes my information difficult to access. Well, now take that and apply that to even sharing that outwardly with others. Now they have to have a password that's that complex. And many of you know already, no client is going to want that. They're not going to want to have that. They want to be able to access their information easily. And so I believe security can be helped in a business by being flexible. And when I say that, it's using different technologies for different purposes. And so if I want to make sure that my data can't be accessed, I don't have to make a really hard password. I could choose by saying it can only be accessed by certain locations. So literally, I could only be at my office or at my house and access my information. If I go somewhere else, I can't do that. Now, I know that doesn't work for everyone, but for many that might work. And for that individual, you could say you can have an easy password. Or I could say if I travel all over the world and I'm going to different things, I might be able to say I can only access certain information that's in my system that's much less important when I'm traveling all over to do that. For very, very important information that's accessed, I need to either have a harder password or I need to access that from a certain location. Using flexibility like that allows everybody to be able to utilize a secure environment. And so I'm one that has a very easy password. Don't tell anyone I said that. I know we're on a podcast, so it's going to get out. But I use a very easy password, but I do have all of my files protected by location. So I only access those kinds of files I need to that are very secure from certain locations. And that's my residence, and a couple places that I do that, and also from my office. And so outside of that, I would have to use a different access if I wanted to get those files. And so I know how to keep my information very secure and yet keep that in a way that's simple for me to access and simple for me to share. So I actually believe that security, when flexible, can provide not just incredible security, it can provide accessibility. And that's actually what prevents people today from doing more with security. When it's really hard, they don't want to do it. And that's actually the biggest reason why people do not actually use security. It's not because they don't think they need to be secure. It's because it was difficult to use. And so I think flexibility and accessibility makes security a help and an improvement to your business.
I think it's a great way of looking at it. And I like the idea of restriction by location. It's something I've never even considered. But when you think about it, it's just another layer that it's a ton of security because, it's like just another layer that provides that security, that someone would have to be at my house and know my password. Those two things together are pretty tough to put together versus just, open to the world and having a password. So interesting way of thinking. And now with your software, eFileCabinet, is it you're providing this for many different businesses, but in a bookkeeping scenario, it's enabling bookkeepers to both interact and provide file access for themselves, but as well their clients. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. That's right. And any of those things we talked about security-wise, those policies are interactive. So what we did to make them flexible is they can be applied to any user any account or even locations inside of eFileCabinet structure itself. So you can apply security policies to any of those. But yes, we make it very easy for them to share, not just for themselves internally in their organization, and of course, all still secure by password security. But of course, they're able to share those externally with clients, and you can give them access to as much or as little as you want. Some people only want to share out something that says they can just preview that and download that and put something back in for us to review, but they don't have access to any other information or anything else inside the environment. So it makes it really flexible. And to do that, Michael, we love that all you have to do is say right-click share, put in their email address, and it's shared to them. That's all you have to do. And it sends them an email notification that's, of course, protected with a link that they can go to direct access to that file.
Interesting. So now let's maybe talk about a comparison to get an idea of why people should be thinking about eFileCabinet. So we've got Dropbox. That's a common, massive, document storage. Or I don't know how it would compare to your solution, but I'm going to take a guess that Dropbox is likely not as secure in terms of how you're operating with. And also, it doesn't do a lot of things that you've already spoken about. But help our listener understand the difference between something like what you're providing and something like a common one like Dropbox or Google Drive.
Sure. So Google Drive, Dropbox, they're a sharing repository, and they share via permissions. And so they do have permissions, but that's not the same as role-based security. So role-based security is going to allow you to say, I'm an individual. If I'm a bookkeeper in here, I've got someone else who's the accountant. I have someone else who's a client. Based on their roles of who they are, they're going to have an automatic permission set that is set up for them every time. So I don't have to go in and keep repeating everything that they need for permissions. I can do that by roles. And so you're not going to find that with your Google Drives and your Dropbox products. You'll have to go to a business series of their solutions in order to get something like a role-based type security environment. And then you mentioned, of course, the difference is we're so much more than just the sharing of those files. Imagine if you needed those files after they've been contributed by, let's say, a client. Let's say they put some invoices in. Those invoices might need to go for processing. Now, you're going to pick those up as a bookkeeper, but they need to go through a business for processing. We would be able to read that information, and based on, let's just use a hypothetical, it's a high dollar invoice. That might go to a different department for processing than a low dollar invoice. Our system, through its workflow, would be able to read that and process that accordingly, go to another department. It would be able to automatically ask for information or requests. Maybe it's approvals that need to happen from different departments. And once those approvals are granted, it needs to move to another hand for payment and billing departments. Our software is going to accommodate all of that and can do that automatically with its workflow utility. So we combine both automation and workflow to make a really streamlined business process happen for things that are happening and occurring regularly in your business. And so you're not going to be able to find those kinds of technology, obviously, in Dropbox or in Google Drive. Great
answer. And I think it gives our listener some ideas of what they might be looking at and where to start digging in. Sounds really exciting. This has been fantastic. Now, we've already kind of discussed a little bit of where people can find out more about eFileCabinet. And I invite our listener to go and take a look at this and see if it's a fit to bring some automation into your business. Jesse, thank you so much for generously giving us your time and sharing what you've been working on over at eFileCabinet.
That's my pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today. And thanks for the listeners who've been listening in with us today.
Beautiful. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.